Hi, everybody. This is Blaine DeSantis, and welcome to America's Game.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and cracker jack. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
I welcome each and every one of you back for another look at some old-time baseball, and I think today you're going to really enjoy this topic. It's a controversial one. But before we get started with that, I want to first of all tell you that tomorrow is summer, so have a happy summer. And also I want to remind you that we will not be coming back until July 10. That's around 3 weeks from now, okay? July 10. So I'm going to wish you all a happy 4th of July, all right? And also, when we come back in July, we will be creeping into the 20th century. That's right, creeping into the 20th century with players who have actually played the ball game in 1900s. That's right. So I look forward to that. Anyway, let's get started with today's show. And our topic for today is gambling and baseball. Now, gambling has been sort of around baseball from the very beginning. As a matter of fact, some people have said that the popularity of baseball early on came from the ability to bet on it. Was a person going to throw a strike, a ball? Was there going to be a hit? Was there going to be an out? Who was going to win? What was the score? Et cetera, et cetera. But I want to take you back, if I could, to the first fixed game, and that takes place on September 28, 1865. That's right, 1865. The Civil War has just ended, and there is a game being played over in Elysian Fields in Hoboken, New Jersey. Now, this is a game between the Mutuals of New York and the Eckfords of Brooklyn. These are two of the earliest professional baseball teams. And they have all had some good seasons in the past. As a matter of fact, both teams finished, well, they didn't have leads, but they finished first in terms of most wins in certain seasons. So like from 1855 through 1865, maybe the Brooklyn team led a couple times. The Mutuals led a few times, most wins in a season. But by the time 1865 comes around, things are a little bit different, especially for the Eckfords, because the Eckfords for 1865 only went 8 wins and 6 losses. They didn't play a lot of games back then. You go back to this, a diversion, a pastime. You see, not really a professional leagues or anything. The Mutuals actually had a better record of 12 wins and 4 losses, but that was only good enough for a 4th place among teams that played professional baseball. Again, just because you played professional baseball does not mean there was a specific league. And you might not play every team in that who's playing professional baseball. So that's one of those things you look at. But the game was played over in Hoboken, in New Jersey, which was the home field of the Brooklyn Eckfords. That's right. The Eckfords of Brooklyn actually were in Hoboken, New Jersey. I don't understand why, but that's where their home field was. And there was a lot of excitement. A lot of bragging rights. Because again, even though the Mutuals of New York claimed to be from Manhattan, they never played their games in Manhattan. They played other locations. So they finally got together to play this game over in Hoboken, New Jersey. And around 3,000 to 4,000 people crossed the Hudson River to come over to New Jersey to watch this game. Well, this was about bragging rights, to be very honest with you. Lots of bragging rights at stake here when these two teams played. And, the Mutuals of New York were the favored team. They had the better record. They had a little bit better players that year, and so they were the favored team. And for the first few innings, this game was very well played. As a matter of fact, there were some newspaper reports that praised the quality of play to the point where they think of some of the best baseball they had seen played this year. Okay, not that there were many games, but they thought it was that good. But after the 4th inning, things started to happen. That's right. As I said, the Mutuals were the favorite. They were the heavy odds favorite. And then come the 4th inning, and the Eckfords are at bat, and the bottom falls out. How does that happen? The Eckfords score in the bottom of the fifth inning 11 runs. Now, it's not that they scored 11 runs, because runs were sort of easier to come by back in the days back then. Again, we had no gloves, and we had no, definitive outfield fencing or anything like that. So it was not unusual to see a lot of runs scored in a game. But it's not just that they scored those 11 runs, it's how they scored the 11 runs. In this one inning, it's just this one inning, the catcher for the Mutuals, a gentleman by the name of William Wansley, he had missed 2 catches at home, he had 6 pass balls, and he made 4 bad throws. Now, I don't know, 2 missed catches, 6 pass balls, 4 bad throws? That's, to me, 12 errors, basically. Then the third baseman, a gentleman by the name of Ed Duffy, he's charged with 2 wild throws, and 4 times he just never covered third base. So that when the throw would go there, he wasn't there. Hey, once they replaced him, there were no problems at third base. But for that one inning, it must have been a wild, wild game, because things were going downhill. And as they said, the fix was in. The Mutuals were heavy favorites, and the Gamblers were cleaning up because they knew that there was a fix. That's right. They knew the fix was in, and the heady Gamblers were betting on the Eckfords and what was going to be happening. Well, after the game was over, and by the way, the Eckfords won by a score of 23-11. So as I said, 11 runs was not exactly uncommon, just the way they scored them, okay? A player by the name of Thomas Diver, he confessed to the owner of the Eckfords that Wansley and Duffy and himself had received a grand total of $100 to throw the game. Now, Wansley, the catcher, who was quite inept in that fifth inning, was the organizer. And the only reason he actually had wanted Diver to be part of this conspiracy to throw the game was to show the Gamblers he had a few players in their back pocket. And if need be, they would throw the game. Diver never did anything. Didn't have an error, a missed throw, or did any problems at all. But he knew about it. He got $30 for his part of this and knowing about it. And after this happened, all of the people were banned or suspended, as they call it. Now, at that time, there was no commissioner. Okay, the only way you could be suspended or banned was by a commission making a determination. And so after the season was over and before the next baseball season, this commission met, and based on the information provided by Mr. Diver, they decided to suspend/ban all 3 players for Major League Baseball. Well, the next year, for the 1867 season, Diver had his suspension lifted because it was proved through an arbitration that he had done nothing wrong. This is interesting, okay? He had done nothing wrong. Therefore, they said the commission had to revoke its suspension, which they did. Then, around September of 1868, around a year and a half later, they then reinstated Duffy. Duffy gets reinstated. And by 1870, Wansley, who set the whole thing up and made 12 errors in one inning, was fully reinstated into the game of baseball. And so these suspensions, bannings, whatever you want to call it, were only temporary. They were supposed to be permanent, ended up only being temporary. But this is the very first time there was a fix that was in. The Gamblers, they wanted to clean up, and certainly did in this game. And we know 2 players were definitely part of it. As far as we know, this was the first fixed game. We don't know if it happened in the past. There's always that possibility. But again, these players didn't get paid a lot of money. As you see, they only played 14, 16 games a year. It wasn't a lot of money. They would be getting on a per-game basis. And so for a person to get $30 back then in 1865, that's a lot of money. That's over $10,000 in today's money, I think. So whatever it is, it was quite the haul for these players to get a few dollars. And again, the first fixed game that we know about, it occurred way back on September 28, 1865, in Hoboken, New Jersey, between the Mutuals of New York and the Eckfords of Brooklyn. And now I come to a seventh inning stretch. And today you better stand up for a while. This is going to be a long stretch, folks, because what I want to do is just going to go over briefly who has been banned from baseball and what about the Hall of Fame? That's the big question now everybody talks about. People don't talk about the Eckfords and the Mutuals and what happened back then to Mr. Duffy and Wansley and Diver. But again, as I said, before 1920, all the players that were suspended had to be suspended by a vote of a committee. And again, this is part of the problem that we saw with baseball. It was a rough game. It was a tough game. There were some issues with the gambling. There were issues with fighting. And that's what led the American League to be formed. They were going to be a cleaner game. They were going to be a much better game for the Americas to enjoy. You wouldn't feel badly sending the wife and the kids to the ball game because there was not going to be this swearing, and there weren't going to be fights. There weren't going to be fixes, etc. Okay? It might not end up like that, but that was the idea. Well, now, prior to 1920, okay, there were a total of 14 people who were banned from baseball. 12 of whom were banned for gambling or attempting to fix a game. Now, what makes this interesting is that one of those 12 was an umpire and one was a team trainer. So there were 10 players, an umpire, and a team trainer. Again, banned, suspended. We know some of these people were banned, but they were brought back in again. Now, one person was banned for violating the reserve clause. That's right. Remember, you had to stay with your team. Well, this one person signed with another team, banned from baseball, okay? And the best one to me is a gentleman who was banned for saying disparaging remarks about the umpires. Oh, my God. Okay? You can't complain about the umpires. What the silly thing that was, that cracks me up. Banned because they made this disparaging remark about an umpire. And if you just heard something, my watch was talking to me, excuse me. You never know what's going to happen when I tape, folks. Anyway, the committee was ineffective, and the owners decided they wanted a strong person to come in and take charge of this. And who do they bring in? Yep, your friend and mine, Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis. He's here to clean up the game. And the thing about Landis is he bans more people in his tenure in office than had been banned since that time. I mean, he was ready to go. Now, of course, we begin with the White Sox or Black Sox scandal, which had 8 players. Now, I am not going to get into the entire Black Sox scandal today. Okay, I'm not going to do that. That will be its own separate show when we'll talk about this. But the names are sort of familiar. Eddie Seacott, he was a pitcher. Lefty Williams, a pitcher. Chick Gandil, the mastermind, the ringleader behind everything. He was in there. Backup infielder Fred McMullen was part of this. Swede Reisberg was part of this, another one of the ringleaders. Happy Felsch was there. And then there were the last 2. That's right, Shoeless Joe Jackson and Buck Weaver. And again, they, interestingly enough, all of the White Sox were acquitted at a trial. And that did not make the judge happy. So despite being acquitted of any wrongdoing, the judge suspended them, banned them, gone from baseball. Oh my, it's a harsh treatment they had back then. Who else was there? Well, there were a couple other names you probably have not heard of. One of my favorites is Benny Koff. Now, Benny Koff played for the New York Giants. He was banned in 1920 for selling stolen cars. I don't know if he's a used car dealer or what, but he's selling stolen cars, so he's banned. All right. Then a really, really good player by the name of Heine Groh played for the Cincinnati Reds. He was banned for 2 days. For 2 days. Now listen to this. He was banned for the reason that he was going to hold out for a higher salary. That's it. You want more money, you're going to get banned from baseball. Can you imagine this? He holds out, and the commissioner bans him. Then he calls him in. He says to him, Mr. Groh, now here's the deal. Either you accept your salary or you will be banned from playing baseball forever. Wow. Okay. That's a little harsh. And guess what Mr. Groh did? Yep. He signed the contract and he played. I think Heine Groh was like a 295 lifetime hitter. He was, he wasn't a superstar, but he was a good ball player. Very good ball player. That's another one that he suspended. Then probably the absolute worst, the worst suspension that he did was a gentleman by the name of Ray Fisher. Now, Ray Fisher played for the Cincinnati Reds. And in 1921, he had a contract to play for Cincinnati. But he got offered the job to be the head coach at the University of Michigan for their baseball team. So, again, he wasn't a great ball player, and he's got a contract to be a coach. He decided he's going to go and coach college baseball. He assumes, again, don't ever assume with a judge. He assumes that he will be put on like a voluntarily retired list, okay? He retired for now voluntarily, and everything's fine. Nay, not for Judge Landis. Nope, you have a contract, you went to coach at a college, you will be banned. That's right, he banned this gentleman. He banned him from baseball. And did he ever get reinstated? Yes. Back in 1980, Bowie Kuhn, in one of the few good things he did, Bowie Kuhn reinstated Ray Fisher. That was 2 years before Fisher died. But it was almost 60 years after he was banned from baseball. Give me a break, folks. Give me a break, because there's a lot worse that's been done, okay? A lot worse. The last person that Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis banned was back in 1943, and his name was William Cox. William Cox had the lucky designation of owner of the Philadelphia Phillies. Yeah, it's the Phillies. What else can we say? And he got banned for betting on the Phillies games. And he actually was the last person who died who had been banned by the judge. So that's the judge's tenure. Then we have Bowie Kuhn. Now, Bowie Kuhn tries to ban people, but they don't stick. Remember, Fergie Jenkins got banned because he had some illegal drugs crossing over into Canada or something like that. So he banned him for a little while. That got reversed by arbitration. And maybe again, Bowie Kuhn's biggest blunder. Well, he decides to suspend and ban from baseball Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle. Are you freaking kidding me? What did these guys do that was so bad? They served as hosts at casinos in Atlantic City. The guys were old. They don't have many sources of income. They were paid to be hosts and greeters, and Bowie Kuhn says that a casino has no place for a baseball hero and person in the Hall of Fame. And he banned them. Are you kidding me? They were reinstated later on in 1985 by Peter Ueberroth, who probably is one of the better commissioners that most people don't want to talk about, okay? We may look at commissioners sometime. But anyway, yep, he banned Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle. Of course, we know Bart Giamatti and Pete Rose. We have that whole situation with gambling there. And then we also have, we have others. People forget that George Steinbrenner was banned. That's right, as was Marge Schott. And now we have banning for drugs or from illegal substances. The actual gambling per se, we don't see anymore, but now people are getting banned for other reasons. But back in the early days of baseball, as I said, it was very prevalent. And once Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis got involved, he ruled with an iron fist. And now for the last part of today's episode. One is in and one is out. And you know who's out? Shoeless Joe Jackson. And the one who's in is probably a name you never heard of. That's correct. His name is Alex Pompez. We all know the story of Shoeless Joe. It's been on movies, books, countless books have been written about Shoeless Joe. He's from right here down in the Greenville area where I live. We have a Shoeless Joe Jackson museum. He was perhaps the greatest natural hitter in all of baseball. Babe Ruth and Ty Cobb both copied his swing. Ted Williams, on his way up from spring training one year, stopped in Greenville to get hitting tips from Shoeless Joe. Shoeless Joe was a great player. Was he as, how should we say, illiterate and dumb as they want to portray him? No, he was not like that. Was he corrupt? I don't think so. When you take a look at what happened in that 1919 World Series, and you see what happened, there was money that was spread about, and there's no doubt that $5,000 was given to Joe Jackson. And what did he do? He led his team in hitting. He ran well. I don't think he made an error. If one, there may have been one misplay. But the bottom line is he played exemplary baseball. He even went to his owner, Charlie Comiskey, and told them about the $5,000. And Comiskey did not want to hear about it. Don't tell me I don't want to know anything about it. I will close and I will turn a blind eye. Was Charlie Comiskey banned? No. Shoeless Joe went to his manager and asked to be taken out of the game because he knew the fix was in. Manager didn't do anything. They had trials. Everybody says Shoeless Joe didn't do it. He didn't throw anything. He was acquitted. And that angered Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis. He wanted to have these players convicted. He wanted to be able to suspend people because they were convicted of a criminal act, and he couldn't. So now he comes up with this whole idea. We're going to suspend people for the gambling, for taking money from gamblers, whether or not they did anything. Remember, we went back to Mr. Diver way back in that first game in 1865? Yeah. Buck Weaver fits in the same category. He didn't take any money. But he knew about it. Yeah, but people told, when you have a player like Shoeless Joe, as great as he was, I think he had the third highest batting average of all time. You have a player as great as Shoeless Joe. Tell your owner and tell the manager about it, and nothing happens. And they'll have him play. And then they ban the man. That's not right. It's not right. Should he have taken the money? No. Again, Mr. Comiskey, not exactly what I would call a very liberal payer of players. Didn't want to play a lot to his players. That was a lot of the problems. Didn't want to pay a lot. Should he have taken it? Probably not. But the fact that he even took it and still played as well as he played and still told people about it, it didn't matter. And Shoeless Joe is not in the Hall of Fame in the plaque room. Oh, he's there. They even have a story and they show pictures of the Black Sox. Oh, yeah. But they won't let him in the plaque room. And that's gutless. That's gutless on the hall. That's gutless on the voters in there who adopt the policy. In fact, even Major League Baseball said, the The Hall of Fame is separate. They can set their own standards. And the gutless wonders decided that, well, if you were banned from baseball in 1991, they decided this, then we won't put you in. Oh, aren't you something? And unfortunately, every appeal that they have made to the commissioners for Joe Jackson has been turned down. But what about Alex Pompez? He's in. You know Alex. Well, you probably don't know Alex Pompez. Alex Pompez was a Cuban. His father owned a cigar store in New York, and Alex was there with him. He was actually a very good judge of talent, a tremendous judge of talent, especially the Cuban talent. Alex Pompez owned the Cuban Stars of the Eastern Colored League. He owned the New York Cubans of the Negro National League. He actually helped organize the first Negro League World Series back in 1924. He signed Latin American players who played in the Negro Leagues and are now in the Hall. And once they were able to get these players into the Major League Baseball, he filed scouting reports on many, many Latin American players, such like Camilo Pascual, Tony Oliva, Orlando Cepeda. Yeah. But then why am I upset about Alex Pompez? Well, Alex Pompez, as well as many of the owners of the Negro League teams, were involved in numbers running and bookmaking. That's right. That's right. Yep. They were known numbers bankers. Pompez was one of New York's leading numbers runners and bankers in the 20s. And eventually, he became part of the Dutch Schultz gang. And guess what? He was indicted for numbers running, indicted for being a gambler. Oh, yeah. But he's in the Hall of Fame. How about associating with known gamblers? You want to tell me about it? You want to get me hot on the collar? Start talking about Joe Jackson and then Alex Pompez. The man, what he did, what he found out he was indicted, he ran to Mexico. The Mexicans refused to extradite him. He stayed there until he eventually made a deal to turn state's evidence. Now, I don't give a good damn if he turned state's evidence, folks. He was a numbers runner. He was a gambler. He was a banker. Okay? He was involved in banking. But we turn a blind eye to this gentleman. Yes, he did great things for colored baseball. I can't tell you he didn't. I would be remiss to say he had no abilities. He did, in fact, form leagues. He did, in fact, know how to scout quality talent. But he also was a gambler, a banker, a numbers runner. And what did those gutless ones do at the Hall? They let him in. That's right. They let Alex Pompez in 2006. They're in such a rush to put stars of the Negro Leagues in the Hall of Fame that they just brush aside a man whose background was worse than anything else. Again, I will debate this with anyone, anytime, as to his credentials to be in the Hall of Fame. It's not right. And if you're going to put Alex Pompez in the Hall of Fame, then you damn better well go back and put Shoeless Joe in the Hall of Fame. Because there's a guy who deserves to be in the Hall of Fame also. Deserves as a player to be in the Hall of Fame. So we do have rules on gambling, but we don't always apply those rules if it doesn't fit our political correctness. We need to have Alex Pompez in. And as I said, I have nothing against Alex Pompez as a talent scout, as an owner. He did great things for the formation of those Negro Leagues. But do we discount what he did? Do we discount that he was indicted? Indicted? Are you kidding me? And then gives testimony against Dutch Schultz? I mean, it's a folly, folks. It is a folly. Ah, yes. Anyway, I told you I might get a little hot under the collar on this one, folks. I'm sorry, friends. I am sorry. I don't mean to get upset. I know my volume got a little bit loud, but I just don't think it's fair. You know, one thing we have in America is a thing called equity. Equity rules. If you don't have a law, you might be able to equitably get someone there where there has to be, get them relief. I'm waiting for the equity that puts Joe Jackson into the Hall of Fame. I'm waiting for somebody to have the guts. I'm waiting for the baseball writers to have the guts to say, you know what? We're going to make an exception. We're going to make an exception and let Joe go in because you know what? It isn't quite fair what happened to him. But will they do it? Nah, you know they won't. Oh my. Well, if we're going to end the 1800s, this is quite a way to end it, wasn't it? I am sorry. As I said, I get really churned up on this. But, you know, the history of gambling and baseball, you know, we're now talking a long time ago it started. And it's fascinating when you sit down and read about what happened and read about that first simple game for $30 that Mr. Diver got. I think it was $100 total was what the three guys got. And it began the whole problem with baseball. And then it led through our dear buddy Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis up through to today, where now we're being banned from baseball for illegal substances, et cetera, et cetera. And, but anyway, I hope it's giving you something to think about, okay? I want to say thank you. We're taking a little bit of an extra week break right now, a little bit of a summer break right now. I hope you have a good vacation. I hope you listen to all of us, all our programs. You have, hey, by the way, there's been some great stuff coming out on Amalfi Sports. You know, great stuff coming out on Amalfi Sports. If you're a sports fan, we got Snapshots, we got Dinner in a Dot. You got Magda with her lovely No Fear Cooking. You got Sarah with No Fear Finance, and you got Joey and Nathaniel, Binge Bros. They're watching everything possible. So, you know, it's a fun time. Take these weeks, listen to some of these shows. You're going to have a great time, folks. Anyway, until July 10th, when we creep into the 20th century for Snapshots and America's Game, this is Blaine DeSantis saying, I'll see you at the ballpark.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and cracker jack. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball.